Hello, my name is Jobrina Marquez. I am an Associate Director in Academic and Membership Affairs at the NCAA. Today I'm going to review NCAA Division I rules related to a Division I men's basketball student athletes' access to NCAA certified agents. One important thing to remember is that these rules apply only to men's basketball student athletes who have NCAA eligibility remaining and would like to retain that eligibility. If a student athlete with remaining eligibility decides to test the professional waters, but wants to keep open the option of coming back to school and competing with his collegiate team, then it is important that he understands these rules. NCAA Division I rules allow a men's basketball player to sign an agreement with and to be represented by an NCAA certified agent. However, in order to permissibly use the services of an NCAA certified agent, two things must happen. The student athlete's team season needs to have ended, and the student athlete needs to have requested an evaluation from the NBA Undergraduate Advisory Committee, or the UAC for short. It is important to note that the NCAA rules also require this evaluation request be made prior to entering the NBA draft. So, a student athlete must request a UAC evaluation prior to both entering the draft and signing an agreement for representation with an NCAA certified agent. For more information on the UAC evaluation, please view our segment with Garth Glissman from the NBA, which talks more about the purpose and process of the UAC evaluation. It is important to note that no representation may occur until an agreement is signed. The agreement between the student athlete and the NCAA certified agent must be in writing. The agreement must be provided to the student athlete's school. Providing the agreement to the student athlete's school provides more transparency to the process and helps the school work with the student athlete and the agent to ensure that NCAA rules are being followed should the student athlete want to retain his eligibility and return to school. Lastly, if the student athlete does decide to come back to school, the agreement with and benefits from the agent must end. In terms of expenses from an NCAA certified agent, there are two time periods in which some benefits from the NCAA certified agent to the student athlete are permitted. Benefits vary based on the time period. The first time period is prior to an agreement being signed. We've often referred to this time period as the agent recruitment period or the agent selection time period. And the other period of time is after an agreement is signed with the NCAA certified agent. During the first time period, or the agent selection process, an NCAA certified agent may provide the student athlete and his family members with meals and transportation in the locale of the student athlete. The purpose of this rule is to allow an agent to come to the locale of the student athlete. This is typically the student athlete's school or home if he is home for break, and it allows the agent to transport the student athlete and also members of his family if they are also in the locale of the student athlete to dinner and pick up the dinner bill. It does not allow the agent to fly the student athlete or the student athlete's parents to the agent or to another location. It is limited to benefits once the agent is in the locale of the student athlete. Although it will not have an impact on student athletes' NCAA eligibility, it is important to note that there still may be some state laws that do not allow agents to provide expenses to a student athlete prior to an agreement being signed. It is the responsibility of the agent to ensure they are not doing anything contrary to state laws. And the last thing to note here is that the student athlete may not miss class to meet with a certified agent. Once a student athlete has met with different NCAA certified agents and has decided on which agent he will sign with, the agent has the opportunity to provide expenses for additional activities, provided the student athlete does not miss class to participate in the activities. The no miss class time requirement is consistent across activities that involve NCAA certified agents. Permissible expenses after signing include meals, lodging, and transportation related to meeting with the agent or professional teams. So here, the agent can provide a flight to the student athlete and his family to come to the agent for a meeting or to attend a professional team tryout, such as a pro day. A few important notes are that if a student athlete decides to return to school, all benefits from and representation by the agent must end. And Under NCAA rules, the student athlete is not required to pay back permissible expenses received from the NCAA certified agent if he returns to school. Something new for 2022, an NCAA certified agent may provide a men's basketball student athlete with transportation, meals, and lodging relating to training expenses, including cost of trainers, facility usage fees, and nutrition in preparation for the 2022 NBA draft, provided the student athlete has signed a 2022 Standard Player Agent Contract, or SPAC, with the NCAA certified agent, and the student athlete does not miss class. As far as the time period in which these additional expenses may be provided, assuming the student athlete has signed that SPAC, the NCAA certified agent can provide the training expenses at the conclusion of the student athlete's playing season and may continue to provide such expenses until the student athlete either withdraws from the NBA draft or June 1, 2022, whichever is earlier. Please note the June 1 date is 10 days after the conclusion of the NBA draft combine. It is important to note that these additional training expenses were approved through a blanket waiver of NCAA rules and is approved for 2022 only. Access to these expenses for future years will continue to be reviewed by the NCAA membership. I am now going to turn it over to Darren from Enforcement to review some best practices for Division I institutions as it relates to access to NCAA certified agents by current men's basketball student athletes.
We thought it was important to provide compliance directors and campus officials kind of a checklist of best practices for student athletes who might be interested in testing the waters of the NBA draft. I think the most important thing is to identify who those student athletes might be. Meeting with the teams at the completion of the season, maybe going through an exit interview and talking to the student athletes and asking them who might be interested in kind of seeing what their trajectory is, whether they have the opportunity to be drafted by the NBA if they want to go through this process, and kind of providing them the materials in order to do this. Again, it's important to note that while the NCAA allows student athletes to do this every year they're in college, the NBA has a little bit more restrictive with this, where student athletes can enter the draft and withdraw twice with no penalty. But according to NBA rules, the third time the student athlete enters the draft, he's not able to take his name out of the draft. So he will remain in the draft, in the entire draft process. And if he's not drafted, he becomes a free agent, which affects his remaining college eligibility. The second thing is important for folks on campus to know is that our athletes can sign with an NCAA certified agent, and they actually sign what's called a Standard Player Agent Contract, or SPAC. That SPAC is provided both to the MBPA and to the school, as well as to myself, who oversees that program. When you're reviewing this SPAC that the student athlete signs, make sure that they've only signed this SPAC and nothing else, and make sure that the Exhibit C is signed. That's the important one, which basically cancels the contract on our withdrawal deadline, which for 2022 is June 1st. So at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on June 1st, the SPAC is null and void because of that withdrawal deadline. So make sure that Exhibit C is signed. Make sure you review the agent certification directory. Make sure that your agent, that your student athlete has signed with an NCAA certified agent. It's also important to document any expenses that the student athlete has occurred while he's working with a certified agent, whether it's meals, transportation, lodging, training. All these expenses are allowed to be paid for by a certified agent, but just making sure you know where the student athlete is and what expenses he's incurring. And that might involve collecting receipts. So making sure your student athlete keeps track of all his expenses and what the agent paid for and what he paid for out of pocket. And finally, and probably most importantly, is to provide that educational materials to the student athlete, to his family, to the coaches, and making sure they know what the agent rules are, making sure they know what the deadlines are, so that the student athlete who's going through this process is aware of what he can and can't do and when he can and can't do those things, so that he maintains that remaining college eligibility.
That is the conclusion of the presentation regarding NCAA Division I rules related to the use of NCAA certified agents. Please visit the NCAA College Basketball Reform Resources webpage for additional educational resources regarding the 2022 NBA pre-draft process, including NBA draft and combine information, NCAA rules regarding professional team tryouts, and access to NCAA certified agents. Thank you.